Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Precisely podcast. Here we talk about contract management and legal operations with the guests that do it best. Today, we have the pleasure to welcome Dani Manfreda, Legal Operations Manager from Adverity. And for those of you who don't know Adverity, they are a marketing analytics SaaS provider. And what Danny will do here with us today is that he will tell us about his team and how they structure their contract management, but also how and why 52% of customer and partner contracts at Adverity today needs no legal input. So that's great work that has been done there for sure. Um, I sure hope that you will enjoy this episode. And of course, good afternoon, Danny, and welcome to the show. Before we start with my questions, please just go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, so hi, and first of all, thanks for having me here. My name is Dani. I work at Adverity as legal operations manager, leading the legal ops team there. And joined Adverity a bit more than a year ago. And yeah, it's been an exciting journey and been excited to see how much progress we have made in the sense of, contract automation. Happy to talk about it in this podcast.
That's amazing. We for sure have a common interest in contract automation and all things related to that. So to make sure that we kind of start off in the right end, how would you define contract automation as a term? What is it for you?
Well, contract automation in its, let's say, most basic sense would be a process of creating a contract, managing a contract, and storing a contract. But what's important to say here is that when we talk about this concept, it's not just about automating the contract itself. This whole concept is a bit wider.
Yeah.
So when we talk about contract automation, it's actually about simplifying and expediting the whole contract lifecycle.
Yeah.
And as you know, contract lifecycle consists of different stages. It starts with creating a contract template that is sort of like standardized. Then we have, for example, a contract needs to be generated by somebody who can be a legal person or maybe not a legal person. Then
Yes.
this contract needs to be, let's say, reviewed internally. Maybe we need to trigger an internal approval. This approval needs to be collected. We, of course, need to also share the contract with the counterparty who may have some comments. So we need to take into the consideration also negotiations around that. And then finally, when everybody is happy with the contract, it needs to go out for signature, and it also needs to be stored. So you can see these are all the different stages that we have, and they're all crucial if we want to achieve efficiency and long-term maintenance. And where Precisely helps us with is with digitally streamlining those steps so that
Yeah.
basically we can put the contract, let's say, on the autopilot mode, and that we put it in the hands of the contract originator who takes
Yeah.
it from step one to the final step when it's signed, and legal is actually not even involved in the best case scenario, because those steps are automated and simplified in a way that the contract originator can play with the contract and include in the contract whatever they want in a safe and controlled environment, and legal only gets involved if there is something extra or out of the ordinary. And finally, this then results in faster contract execution. It builds also better relationship with internal stakeholders. And I
Yeah.
think it's also important to say that the time that other departments would spend on contract creation, they can actually spend it with the counterparty, I don't know, with prospect, partner, supplier, whoever it is, and actually talk about their project and future collaboration. So
Yeah.
yeah, this is what I would see as contract automation.
Yeah, and I think you're really pointing out some key parts of it. And I think what's important, and at least for me, is what you're saying, that it's not a tool only for legal. Legal will of course be involved, but it's also a tool for legal to kind of move the work away from them and allow other persons in the organization to actually use it based on this very clearly defined workflow when where a system can actually help you in doing that, which of course helps everyone at the end.
Exactly.
So speaking about, contract workflows and those things, would you be able to describe a typical contract workflow from Adverity and how you use it?
Yeah, so it's a very good point that you brought up. So at Adverity, we have a lot of departments actually who have access to our contract management tool precisely. And I think we have today more than 170 users that have some touch points with precisely. So they are not, of course, all working on a daily basis in precisely, but they do work in precisely. So you can imagine we also then have different workflows that, yeah, they're not always the same. But if I can, let's say, describe a typical one, it would look something like this. So a contract originator who in most cases actually not a legal person. It can be sales, business development, I don't know, account management. They come to precisely and they have there already available quite a few contract templates that are standardized and pre-approved by legal. So they just need to select the contract that they want to have, that they want to use, and then they are already in the drafting mode. So basically, in precisely this whole contract, generating the contract is very simple. It basically leads the contract originator through different sets of questions. And by answering those questions, the content is pulled into the final contract. So those are actually the variables. So you can see that basically this is how we can somehow control or create a safe environment for a non-legal person to be able to draft a contract successfully. Once the contract is generated, normally it needs to be, let's say, reviewed by the line manager of the contract originator. We need to collect, or first of all, trigger approvals, which are imprecisely triggered automatically. We collect approvals, then the contract needs to go to the counterparty for their review, this party may also have some comments to it. So let's see, maybe we have some contract negotiations there. And yeah, finally, when everybody is happy, the contract gets sent out. And because we use the integration with our e-signature provider, it's basically we are using the tool that we are anyway already familiar with, and it goes automatically to the counterparty for signature. As soon as this is signed, then it gets automatically stored in precisely. So this is like a typical example, and you can see I did not mention an involvement of legal anywhere because everything was basically standardized, and the content of the contract is basically whatever the contract originator wanted to have there. And legal is actually not involved unless we have something out of the ordinary, something that we need to then step in and I don't know, draft a clause or remove something. But even that we were able to automate to a pretty good extent with precisely, because we do offer within the questionnaire in the process of drafting a contract like a clause library where the contract originator can basically select which pre-approved legal clauses they want to include into the contract, and maybe if they want to take something out, we also took that into the account. So this would be sort of like a typical contract workflow at Adverity.
Yeah, and I think you're really pointing at the ideal workflow as well. And I mean, by having, as you say, all the templates pre-approved by legal, I assume that also anyone in the company, let's say sales, goes in and draft, they can be very comfortable that they know that they're not acting outside sort of the lines or the framework of contracting in Adverity, at the same time as legal can kind of rest on their end and know that nobody goes beyond what they're authorized to do, because if they do that, they will automatically know, which of course is a great benefit. Is there any specific type of contracts or contract workflow that you've been able to automate fully today? And is there maybe some specific reason for why you started at this end or with this type of contract?
So yeah, basically any contract that is prepared or let's say standardized by the legal team and put into precisely, is actually, or can be fully automated. So it can be taken from point one to signature point by the contract originator, and legal does not have to be involved. And we have various different types of contracts that we have standardized. So we have, commercial agreements, partner agreements, employment agreements. This is all standardized, and basically this can be or is fully automated at Adverity, as long as there is nothing special about it. And yeah, why we basically focus on that, or maybe I can say that we focused especially on the commercial contract, simply because before we introduced precisely, this was like the biggest chunk of the contracts, and the Adverity is growing very fast, and we are getting more and more of these. So that's why our focus was, of course, there, and we try to automate every stage of the contract life cycle as much as possible, so that basically legal can then and also other teams can focus on other stuff and not worry about this manual work like we had in the past, and worrying about which contract template to use, because everything is sort of like standardized and automated.
Yeah. And I'm thinking that there are kind of two approaches to take here when you decide that, okay, we are going to start automating our contracts. On the one hand, maybe you want to start with your most simple ones to just get those out and rolling, and having the users getting familiar with the workflow, or you start with the ones that you see that you are using the most, or negotiating the most, or getting the most questions from, which maybe is a little bit more complicated. Let's say a commercial contract perhaps is more complicated than a standard NDA or an employment contract, but you see a lot of value in kind of getting that process automated and not having to jump in so often as the legal person. So it's kind of a two ways of approaching where to start.
Exactly, yeah. That's correct. And yeah, in our case, I would say it's a bit of both, but of course we wanted to focus on the biggest chunk of the contracts, and yeah, that's why commercial agreements are also, like, we're constantly improving them, and trying to think out of the box, maybe adding new clauses to the clause library, and to basically bring it to an even higher level of fully automated contracts, or higher percentage.
Yeah. And have you seen, been able to collect some kind of data, noticing that in this specific commercial contract, we see that the 3 available clauses that we have put in the template now needs to be revised, or we need to add an additional clause? Have you been able to utilize the system in that way as well?
Yeah, thanks to Precisely and the metadata that we are also using, and we can track basically the most, let's say, important content of the contract, or the metadata that is interesting to us. We can see that, and we can see which templates are, let's say, requiring more often legal involvement. And then we immediately start thinking, okay, why is that the case? Maybe the template is not as good as we thought, and maybe we would need to work more on it and try to make it even more, let's say, user friendly, so that legal does not have to be involved. Of course, for some use cases we want to be involved, but trying to think about those examples where basically we can automate, and we can put, let's say, paper and scissors in the hands of the contract originator, who is, like I said, in most cases not a legal person at our company.
Yeah, which is of course a great benefit as well, like having the person that's closest to the counterparty actually being able to tailor the contract, rather than legal, who gets involved first in the contracting process, and you don't really know what's been discussed before. You have to collect that information, but here it's really the contact person is always going to be the same, and is able to do his own adjustments.
Exactly.
I don't know if Adverity already had Precisely when you started, but what were the biggest hurdles or pain points that you foresaw, or Adverity had foresaw, if you had not prioritized automation?
So yeah, basically, when just before I joined, actually, Precisely and Adverity started working together. but yeah, I can still remember, like especially the improvements, and yeah, it's like the hurdles that, if let's say we would not have precisely, would be, first of all, we would be losing a lot of time.
Yeah.
Like at our company, we have in the last quarter we had more than 50% of the commercial contracts fully automated, which means that legal was not involved. So you can imagine, if we put those 50% on those legal counsel's desks and they need to be involved in each of those contracts, it's a lot of time. So this was for sure something that we took into account, and we said, okay, we need a contract management tool like Precisely to basically save time and to be able to focus on the substantial work and provide legal advice. But also, like, not having things automated and standardized in a way uh, exposes you to human error.
Yeah.
Simple as that. So Precisely offers us, I don't know if we talk about commercial agreements, very advanced formulas that we can use to calculate the fees, and there are other aspects of it in the contract templates that we're using, where basically we can reduce or basically eliminate human error. So that was for sure another reason why we wanted to have contract management tool. And also, it's contract management tool also enables the company to win business, to close business fast, because we're not losing time on the admin stuff and manual work in relation to the contract workflow. So we can have this automated. And also, as we are we scale and we have a lot of new people joining, it's also much easier to onboard somebody if you have already in place a contract management tool, and you don't have to explain all the manual steps that would need to be taken if you didn't have it. So yeah, these are maybe some of the things that would probably be big roadblockers if we didn't have it. So if we didn't have Precisely.
Yeah, and I remember that for myself. Obviously, when I started Precisely, we use Precisely for our own. And I mean, as long as I could log into Precisely and start drafting contracts, I didn't have to figure out who needs to approve this contract, who is the signee of this contract, and all those parts. It's just when I'm let in, it's going to be automatic, and I can feel more comfortable that I'm not going beyond what I'm authorized to do, which of course is important when you're scaling up. But then also, I don't know if or I'm sure you've heard it, that legal is the bottleneck in all processes, and when you're scaling fast and have a lot of sales going on or other commercial partnerships, you don't want to be that kind of bottleneck slowing things down every time. You want people to come to you for the fun stuff and not for because they're frustrated.
Exactly. And imagine dealing with every day with I don't know, 10 times with the same manual step that you need to I don't know, be involved. You get frustrated, others get frustrated, so in the end it's just not fun to work anymore. So yeah, that's why this is also a very important aspect of having things automated in legal.
Yeah, and making it more fun, even not having to do those manual things, identifying where in the contract did I put excess because I need to insert information there, or just changing those small name bits and pieces that you're bound to miss something at some point. So looking more at like quantitative measurements and data points, what results have you been able to see in terms of quantitative data points or save time?
Yeah, so for sure we are saving a lot of time with Precisely, not just the time in the legal team, also the time in other departments, which is of course super valuable. But yeah, we had in the last quarter 52% of all commercial and partner contracts were basically completely automated in a way that legal was not involved at all. But also looking back, so before we started using Precisely, we had another contract management tool, and at that point, even though we had contract management tool, only around 40% of the contracts were actually processed via that tool, and this is increasing with Precisely gradually each year. So we had in 2021 already 55% of contracts processed only through Precisely, and this year we are already at 76%. And
Wow.
you can see that we are, the trend is going up, and we wanted to bring it as high as possible. Of course, there will also be some exceptions, but we are really, putting everything in to have everything processed through our contract management tool. And yeah, this is once again, we can track all these through the possibilities that Precisely give us. So we can track those contracts, and also like in details, we can go into contract. We can see which clauses were used, how often, and all this helps us with reporting, which is, as you know, also very important, so that we can show, these are the figures, and we can also then, make informed decisions what the next steps will be. So yeah, this would be like, in a nutshell, some numbers.
Yeah, and 76%, that's really, really an amazing number. I mean, everybody, of course, wants to be at 100, and maybe that will come down the line, but 76 is truly impressive. It's great work that's been done.
Exactly, and especially looking at where we started, so like I said, 40% basically 2 years ago, year and a half ago. So yeah, I'm sure we can get to 100 very soon.
Me too. We have kind of touched upon it sort of in the other questions, but if you were to pick, like, what are the biggest benefits in your opinion that the legal department gets from automation?
Yeah, so I would really put on number one would be like time saved, and really enabling the legal team, legal counsels to actually focus on the legal problems and really provide legal advice and really bring value in that sense to the company, and not lose time on some manual repetitive tasks that basically they shouldn't be working on. So this would be for sure number one. But also I think, like, in general, it brings us closer to other teams, because simply, like you said, it can be fun. So basically, we are not discussing with other teams like the bottlenecks, but we are just working together to get the contract over the line, to get it signed. And this for sure helps with the atmosphere. And one of the biggest benefits is also, like I said, with the reporting, and basically Precisely helps us see which contract templates can be improved and where we have room for improvement. And we constantly want to improve, and this is something that we really value. And this is how we basically can actually bring big value to the other teams as well, because we make their life easier, and of course we also make our life easier, because we don't have to spend time on the tasks that where we are not needed.
And I guess that another interesting point is that legal can kind of prove with data that they are making data-driven decisions, or actually strategic decisions, and not purely based on a gut feeling or whatever you like the most. That you can actually see that, okay, we're using this tool, and now we see that this clause is used by nobody, or this clause is used by everybody, or you're asking me once again and once again, and you can really show that we're not only the traditional people thinking what we read in law school, but we're actually using data as well to be proactive.
Yeah, exactly. So it's also at Adverity we say smart with data, and this goes for all departments, so legal included. And having such a tool, of course, it's a big benefit, and it helps us a lot.
Yeah. And looking at the other departments of the company, can you see benefits there as well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can see that, of course, they're also happy, because if so they already know, let's say, if there is nothing out of the ordinary to our contract template, that basically they can bring it over the line very fast, because less teams are involved. It's basically the contract is in their hand, and it can be signed very fast. So of course it's something that everybody appreciates. And it's always better to do it this way than already knowing that it will take time, because we don't have a process in place, or we have no automation. So you you can see that basically
Yeah.
it does bring value. So it does not go only for the legal team that we can focus on our legal stuff, but also for other teams that they can focus on, I don't know, on partnerships, on selling, or whatever it is, and not
Yeah.
spend time with manual managing the contract. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that would be the most important thing. And yeah, they are saving time, and you can, yeah, time is super important to everybody, and if we can invest time in something else, something more important, then I think everybody is up for it.
Yeah. Would you say that there is a difference in how you collaborate with your colleagues in other teams today rather than before? You mentioned the 40% of contracts being used in a contract automation tool before. Is there like one single point where you're like, okay, this is how our collaboration really shifted to being more fun?
Yeah, I can see, like, especially, so our contract template library also grew over time, and this of course is bringing the percentage up of the fully automated contracts, and yeah, you can see that in the past we were much more involved with other teams in contracts, but not because our involvement was needed, but simply because we did not have the process automated. And when we introduced a template for that, or we introduced a process within Precisely that is fully automated, of course, the collaboration was different. So in the past, we were always sort of like, hey, can you, I don't know, step in and do that? Like always, you know what we have to do. But it's really just about, we get involved where we have something special about a contract, some interesting clause that we want to, that needs to be discussed. So yeah, it's basically, I would say it did improve also like relationship with the internal stakeholders in that sense, so that we are really working more on the fun stuff, at least from the legal point of view.
Yeah. Well, the fun stuff is always from the legal point of view, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All fun things lies with legal.
Yeah, exactly.
You mentioned that you have an e-signature tool connected to the system, which of course is very important. But do you use contract automation functionalities also with other systems, or any integrations that's been very beneficial for you?
So we are using the integration with our e-signature provider, which is really great, because this way we have always the same look and feel. So even if we have to make an exception and, I don't know, process the contract for whatever reason outside our contract management tool, we still have the same look and feel, still use the same e-signature provider. But yeah, Precisely also recently, so you introduced the integration with HubSpot, and this is something that we are currently working on and playing with it, testing it, and already thinking about the potential rollout in the near future. And yeah, we really appreciate basically Precisely work on that and enabling those integrations, because this does not bring value only to us, but also, I mean, to the legal team, but also to the other departments who are maybe working with other tools that legal is actually not involved with, and Precisely is supporting that.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the next level of contract automation, connecting it to other systems, where a system like Precisely is sort of the hub for the legal stuff, but it's still speaking to all of the others, so you don't have to take information manually from one system to another, but it's all a community of speaking systems.
Yeah.
Great. We are running out of time, and I'm so sad because I feel like we could talk forever. But thank you so much, Dani, for this insightful chat. I do have a final question, which is, what is the one book that you would recommend any legal professional to read, or article, or anything on that topic?
So yeah, it's you can, as you know, in legal we do a lot of reading in our work time, and it's that's why basically I prefer to read in my free time, actually, books that are not really legal related. at least not directly. So I would maybe recommend a book which I read recently. It's about sleeping by an author. He's a doctor, Matthew Walker. The book is called, if I'm not mistaken, Why Do We Sleep, or Why We Sleep. Yeah, simply because maybe you know it,
No, I
because
don't.
okay, then I recommend it to you. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just it's a very insightful book. Talks about sleeping and the importance of it, not just for our health, but also like the way we perform at work as well. So yeah, if if you want to work well, we also need to sleep well. So yeah, you are invited
Yeah.
to read it if you don't have a book for the vacation yet.
I will. I'll put it on my list, actually. It sounds super interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Great. Then again, thank you so much, and speak again soon.
Thank you.